conference room at the chamber. Public safety. During our winter retreat, Chief Jim DeTolli told us the Huntersville Fire Department will be replacing one of our fire trucks. In the past several months, the fire department has a truck committee, and they've been working hard at building the new specs for this truck that'll serve the community for the next 15 years. This order will be placed this year, and it should take 365 days to build this fire engine. From the Huntersville Police Department, last week was National Police Week. The Huntersville Police Department honored those that have made the ultimate sacrifice for their community. Remembering the fallen can be tough, but the support from the Huntersville citizens helped the Huntersville Police Department get through this. They received several meals from surrounding restaurants, businesses, and I would just like to add my thank you to the police departments. Thank you for remembering them. School's out May 28th, but Huntersville is hosting summer school at two of our high schools, Hopewell and North Meck, so continue to watch out for school buses and children along the sidewalk. And the upgraded annex body cameras have arrived, and the police department is in the process of swapping those out with their current cameras. June 18th, the police department will be hosting a cleanup day at Huntington Green community, and more information to follow on that. And in closing, I would just like to ask everybody who's interested in serving on any of the town boards to please put your application in on the town website. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Commissioner Hines?
Well, thank you. My update will be very brief. Since our last meeting, we haven't had a CRTPO meeting, but we have one this Wednesday. And Commissioner Boone is going to be filling in for me, which I thank you very much, Commissioner Boone. Really, the only things we're going to be discussing is talking about the ranking process from the update of the 2050 Metropolitan Transportation Plan. Sounds very exciting. And then just transportation alternatives and the scoring criteria for those as well. So, Mr. Mayor, that's it.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Walsh?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Greenway Trails and Bikeway Commission will have their monthly meeting tomorrow evening starting at 6 p.m. They will be meeting outdoors at the Huntersville Athletic Park Shelter, which is not far from here. Diane McLean, who chairs that group, is here this evening to give everyone an update on our greenways. The Parks and Recreation Commission monthly meeting is on Wednesday starting at 6:30. They will too be meeting in person and outdoors at the Bradford Park. There's a couple events coming up at Veterans Park this week. On Thursday, our jazz concert series will be there from 6 to 9 p.m. And on Saturday, the Growers Market opens up at 8 a.m. and the market is open through August. So hope you guys will come out and buy some fresh vegetables, etc. So that's it, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Bales?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will start with my EDC report. Currently, the EDC is working 31 projects total. 19 of those are in Huntersville. There is a slight decrease in the product count because the EDC's been working through their product list and moved projects to an inactive state if there hasn't been any activity around them in 3 months. I'd also like to mention to the board that there will be a CEO roundtable on Wednesday, and you are all welcome and invited if you're interested in participating. Reach out to Haley Neasley or Bill Russell with the Chamber, and they can get you registered. The roundtable will feature Chris Chung. He is the Chief Executive Officer for the Economic Development Partnership for North Carolina, so he will be here on Wednesday. Moving through my list, I also wanted to share that tomorrow, for those of you parents that may homeschool, it's monthly homeschool day tomorrow at the Carolina Raptor Center, and it is from 10 a.m. to noon. The cost is $10 for adults, $6 for children, and anyone under the age of 3, you are welcome to come for free. At HFFA this weekend is going to be the USA National Region 2 Championship. That will be the 21st through the 23rd, and the event was moved from Fort Washington, Pennsylvania, down here to Huntersville. So we're excited to see some diving happening in Huntersville this weekend. For those of you who may not have been out to Burkdale yet, the Regal Theater is now open, so if you're ready for a movie, Burkdale is open there, and Frankie's Fun Park has their outdoor carnival rides back on. So if you're looking to be outside and have some fun with your family, we have that. And last but not least, I just wanted to mention that it is National EMT Week this week. So I would like to thank all of our EMT providers for all that they do for our community. And with that, Mr. Mayor, I think I've covered everything. Back to you.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Phillips?
All right, Rural Hill updates. They are doing weddings back at full capacity now. They are starting to resume planning dinners and food truck rallies, so keep an eye open on their social media for those. They've started to do the prep for the Amazing Maze for this fall. And they are still doing the drive-in concert / pod parties. And if you're interested in that, you can check out maxxmusic.com for the concert lineup and to register. And then with Ada Jenkins, the Volunteer Income Tax Assistance VITA program wrapped up this past Saturday. 160 tax returns were completed at no cost for an estimated savings of around $50,000 to the community, and they will be giving official numbers by town at a later date. And Ada Jenkins is finally able to start accepting applications for financial assistance for residents living in our area again. They have to be at 300% and below the poverty level. To check out the guidelines and to apply, you can go to adajenkins.org. And I'm going to flex my aunt privileges right now and wish Cora Kidwell a happy 7th birthday today. That's
Okay.
all I got.
Thank you. Commissioner Munger?
Thank you, Mayor. On May 6th, I attended the Huntersville Ordinance Advisory Board meeting where we discussed exciting things like commercial communication towers, adding dormitory to allowed uses in the transitional residential zoning district, and allowing detached garages and side yards. There was an additional meeting on May 10th to review the 160D changes, which unfortunately I was unable to attend due to our prior commitment. And then this past Saturday, had the opportunity to really do a once-in-a-lifetime type of experience. Commissioner Hines and I were able to go to the Huntersville Fire Department, held a live fire training exercise in the area of the Future Publix on Samfur Road. We were able to suit up and actually go inside the burning building. Fires right there. It was an amazing experience, and I just have to say, I have an enormous amount of respect for what firefighters do, and I cannot thank Chief DeToli for this opportunity. It was a great experience. And finally, as always, if you have the opportunity to give, please consider supporting our nonprofits such as Angels and Sparrows, Caterpillar Ministries, Bags of Hope, and Ada Jenkins. And that is all.
Okay. Have you filled out a volunteer application
For,
HFD?
no.
Once in a lifetime. All right, somebody left their sunglasses on the sign-in table, just FYI. Any questions of staff? All right. Ms. McLean, are you here? Come on up. You look shocked. Aren't you presenting? Okay. Welcome and good evening.
Hello.
What's going on at the Greenway Trail and Bike Commission?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna. All right, how's that? Can you hear me okay? All right. All right, so we wanted to start out with a thank you. And thank you. Thank you to the board for the support that you've given us and the funding that you've given the Greenways in the recent months. Thank you to the town for all the work they've done on grants, on just laying out the plan that kind of takes the vision that we had and makes it a reality. You know, thanks to everybody who came before us and laid the foundation for us to get where we are today, because really, When you look at greenways, we're just in an amazing place right now, and we're so excited about what's coming. And we've had so much support, and really just didn't want to lose the opportunity to say thank you. So yeah, so town board support and staff support. And I'll just kind of page through this, kind of give a minute. Okay. So that takes us to our 30 by 30 vision, and I just want to give an update on where we are. Our first goal in our 30 by 30 vision is greenway development. Our 30 by 30 vision is, the goal is to extend the Huntersville Greenway to connect 30,000 residents within a half mile of the greenway system by 2030. That total greenway to be added would be 14 miles, which will bring us to 17 miles. And so looking at the map, the dark green, I think, as you know, is what we've got already. It's about 3 miles. The light green is what's approved and funded, which is just so exciting. And the red is what's left in our 30 by 30 vision. So what we've got approved really takes us from Otten Nature Preserve just beyond Beatty's Ford all the way to Asbury Chapel, and then all the way up to Brookdale, connecting into the existing greenway up there. So a really good north-south and east-west connection, which is our goal. I think with the between COVID and even the recent gas shortage, the need for things like greenways to get you places, you know, other than having to get in a car or just wanting to be outside, you know, we've just seen so many reasons that they're so important. So it's just makes it all the more exciting that it's moving forward in the way that it is. So if you look at our development progress, the funded greenway, if looking at that 30 by 30 vision, we've what's been funded is 78% of our goal. And so what's remaining is that 22%, which was in red. And so the way they've laid this out is different, but and I won't walk through every one of those, but that's kind of that 11 of the 14 to be developed greenway that this presentation kind of lays it out for you where that is, and again it just goes back to that light green line that was on the previous map. In addition, our second goal is connectivity into that greenway. Just to remind you, we looked at maps, we drove around Huntersville, and we basically looked at every school, every single neighborhood in Huntersville, every major shopping, every park, and looked at the sidewalk that's already there and said, if we wanted to try to connect every single one of those places into the greenway, what would it take? And what's in red is the representation of what it would be. And also, there's a couple spots that you see in light blue that also is the connections that need to be made. The dark blue is the paths that are already there or expected to be there, like 73, we assumed that NCDOT funded project would happen. And then with those assumptions, just figured out what the gaps would be. And if you look at that total in red and light blue is 8 miles of either sidewalk or multi-use path, depending on, you know, what's appropriate. So where are we with that? Of the sidewalk and multi-use path miles that we are recommending, 0.8 miles of that have been prioritized, and that's what we saw in light blue on the previous page. What's left is 7.2 miles, about 90%, but we're in 2021, and it being at 10% to a 20 by 30 goal seems right on track, and our goal is just to continue advocating for those connections and adjusting our plan as we work with the town. So next steps, partner with the county to move forward on our county-funded projects, complete development of the town-funded downtown greenway, move forward on the CRTPO-funded grant-funded segment, prioritize sidewalk and multi-use path development, and plan for the design of the most recently approved greenway segments in partnership with the county. So we're really recommending we stay on path for completing the 30 by 30 vision greenway segments. So then what's next? We're so close. What do we do next? What's in red is what we'd say we should do after we get there. We're expecting, if we can fill in all those gaps and complete projects that we expect to be on the horizon, that we almost have a loop around Huntersville. So what's next would be filling in the gaps where we don't have the loop, and also bringing greenways a little bit closer to neighborhoods in the southwest, northwest, and northeast. In addition, we also recommend working with the county on the Mooresville to Charlotte trail, which they've recently named the Seam, and so that's also highlighted in red there. So, in addition, a few months ago, the SAFE organization came to us with a proposal for our town to adopt bikes may use full lane signs. The commission heard their proposal. We did some research on our own, and in last month's meeting, we approved the motion, and I'll read it to you. The Greenway Trail and Bikeway Commission supports SAFE's recommendation to enhance road signage in Huntersville with bikes may use full lane signs to increase existing bicyclist road law awareness as well as promote safety for bicyclists on our roads. So with that, I will turn this over to Scott McConnell from SAFE, who's going to give his presentation. I'll say thank you again for your time, and keep supporting Greenways.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you.
Good evening. Please tell us what SAFE is. Introduce yourself.
Thank you. Let me figure this thing out. I didn't know that I was supposed to. I think I turned it off.
Good. You're over.
I think I was supposed to have one slide up there, and I just missed it. There it is. Okay, thank you. Thank you for the time this evening. I appreciate it. My name is Scott McConnell. I have been a resident of the Lake Norman area since 2002. I'm part of an advocacy group called SAFE. It stands for Street Access for Everyone. This group came about after the local cycling community, the Lake Norman cycling community, lost a very close friend from being hit by a motorist early last year on Highway 115. On behalf of SAFE, I've spoken to several times at town commissioner meetings in Mooresville, Cornelius, Davidson, shared my personal story of being hit by a car while I was cycling. I was partially paralyzed below the knees until I was put back together by the doctors with spinal fusion surgery. Luckily, I was able to regain the ability to walk and do everything that I was doing before. My request at the meetings was to ask respective town leadership to support initiatives aimed at improving safety for bicyclists, as well as pedestrians and motorists on the streets. As a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, bicycle sales surged in 2020. And also, according to an article by Spectrum News 1, 19 cyclists were killed on North Carolina streets in 2019. That surged to 26 cyclists killed on North Carolina streets in 2020. We think as a result of the pandemic, more people were buying bicycles, getting out on the streets. So there certainly is a need for more safety. That only counts the fatalities. It doesn't count the non-fatal injuries, like mine. Those non-fatal injuries can't be downplayed. The results of the crash reach beyond just physical injuries suffered by victims. Impacts affect family, friends, co-workers. Victims miss work. Family members put their lives on hold to care for those victims, like me. Hospital bills from my crash alone were over $270,000. That doesn't count all the time spent with attorneys fighting insurance companies for years. Obviously, lives are changed by things like this. Not just the lives of the people who were hit, the motorists' lives are changed as well. They have to live with the fact that something happened like that. Several different ways to help reduce and eliminate needless injuries and death, included but not limited to education, especially educating motorists on how to safely pass bicyclists. Expanded infrastructure such as more bike lanes. Enforcement of motor vehicle laws to deter against distracted driving and aggressive driving. And improved signage. Our efforts to partner with the leadership of Cornelius, Davidson, and Mooresville to increase awareness and safety of all street users have been very successful so far. The town of Cornelius made excellent strides to improve safety. They've worked with CRTPO and North Carolina Department of Transportation to identify and secure discretionary funds for infrastructure changes for approved road projects for 2021, to include bike lanes, improved markings, and improved signage. Davidson Davidson and Mooresville have been able to identify funding for similar projects in their respective towns. One common change recently made in all three towns has been the replacement of the yellow Share the Road signs that I think everybody's probably used to seeing, and replacing them with a sign similar to what I put up here. Bicycle may use full lane. The bicycle may use full lane signage more clearly indicates the actual law, which states that a bicycle has a right to the full lane if needed. We're not out there trying to take up the lane, like some people think we are. We do it for safety reasons. If we're sitting on the far right shoulder, right side of the road, a motorist that's coming up behind us might think that they have enough room to pass us if oncoming traffic is coming instead of moving over. And that's when a lot of accidents happen and bicyclists are hit because they just don't have enough room to pass. If we move over towards the middle of the lane just a little bit more when there's oncoming traffic, we can deter a motorist from behind us from trying to squeeze between there. They'll wait until it's safe to pass and they'll change the lane to pass. So this change has been made recently in Mooresville, Cornelius, and Davidson. They've started replacing the Share the Road signs with the bicycles may use full lane signs. It's too early to know whether changing these signs is going to be the long-term effectiveness of the signs. But we know that paired with a well-thought-out communication plan, the signs can actually spark constructive conversation from the public. While some of the publicity, especially from social media, can turn contentious, the fact that the information is being consumed and discussed is of great value. Contentious or not, the public becomes more aware of what the actual law is. We ask that you strongly consider joining with the neighboring towns in the Lake Norman area to help increase awareness and safety for all street users. More cyclists are using the streets for various reasons each year. There's a great need to increase the awareness and safety. We know that the funding is tight, but we can connect you with the appropriate officials in the neighboring towns so you can understand how they were able to implement the changes in their towns. We hope Huntersville can implement similar changes. I appreciate the time this evening. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right. Next, National Public Works. Which one is, okay. This is National Public Works Week. And there's some of our public works workers. So I have a proclamation here, and I'm just going to read it. So, whereas public works professionals focus on infrastructure, facilities, and services that are of vital importance to sustainable and resilient communities and to the public health, high quality of life, and well-being of the people of Huntersville. Whereas these infrastructure facilities and services could not be provided without the dedicated efforts of public works professionals who are engineers, managers, and employees at all levels of government and the private sector, who are responsible for building, improving, and protecting our nation's transportation, water supply, water treatment, and solid waste systems, public buildings, and other structures and facilities essential to our citizens. Whereas it is in the public interest for citizens, civic leaders, and children in Huntersville to gain knowledge of and maintain a progressive interest and understanding of the importance of public works and public works programs in their respective communities. And whereas the year 2021 marks the 61st annual National Public Works Week, sponsored by American Public Works Association. Now therefore I, Mayor John Annarella, Mayor of Town of Huntersville, do hereby proclaim May 16th through the 22nd, 2021 as National Public Works Week in Huntersville, and urge all citizens to join with the representatives of the American Public Works Association and government agencies in activities, events, and ceremonies designed to pay tribute to our public works professionals, engineers, managers, and employees, and to recognize the substantial contribution they make to protecting our national health, safety, and quality of life. Is Mr. Fox or anybody here that can come on up? I'll give this to you, and thank everybody there, and thank you for your leadership. Do you have anything you want to say? Thank you. Services. Also have another one, proclamation. Mr. Russell, do you want to come up here and I'll give this to you? Whereas the town of Huntersville, North Carolina recognizes and values the dedication and entrepreneurial spirit of small businesses that keep the state and American economy growing stronger. And whereas there are over 930,000 small businesses with employees in North Carolina alone, representing a majority of the total number of businesses with employees in the state. And whereas the income of North Carolina's small business owners totals over $20 billion, and these businesses employ 1.7 million North Carolinians, or 45.3% of the state's non-farm private workforce. And whereas there are over 28,500 small businesses with employees in Mecklenburg County and over 69,000 sole proprietors, representing the majority of the total number of businesses in the county. Whereas it is the collaborative mission of the town, working with the Lake Norman Chamber of Commerce, the Lake Norman Economic Development Corp., Visit Lake Norman, and the Small Business Administration to help our businesses grow and create new jobs in the community and Lake Norman region by providing exemplary workforce training, financial assistance programs, and research and technical assistance. And whereas the town of Huntersville appreciates the support of our small business community by the Lake Norman Chamber of Commerce, Central Piedmont Community College, Small Business Technology Development Center, and our SCORE volunteers. Whereas during the week of May 24th through May 28th, 2021, the Lake Norman Chamber of Commerce is celebrating Small Business Week. Now therefore I, John Anarella, Mayor of the town of Huntersville, do hereby proclaim May 24th through 28th, 2021 as Small Business Week in Huntersville, and urge all citizens to acknowledge and celebrate the achievements made by small businesses both locally and nationally, and to further support your local businesses by shopping and buying local. Thank you. All right. There are no more weeks in May, so I guess there's no more proclamations for May. Next item on our agenda is to hear from the public. Our first speaker tonight is Patrick Thomas.
Mr. Mayor, we do have a, oh, I'm sorry. I tried to jump the
You got all
shark.
these people waiting, you don't want to
I
talk, huh?
know. No, I certainly do want to hear from them.
How you doing, Mr. Thomas? Please state your name and address. You have 3 minutes.
My name is Patrick Thomas. I live in the Mirabella development, just outside of town. What was the other part of the question? I'm sorry.
Excuse me?
You said name, address, and what? I didn't hear the other part of what
You have 3 minutes.
Oh, okay.
2 minutes, 58 seconds.
Oh, boy.
No, I'm all kidding. Just put the microphone a little closer so we can all hear you.
Okay. Is that better?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, so first, thank you for the opportunity to speak before the board and yourself, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to talk about the Colonial Pipeline gas spill. The spill happened less than a mile from my home, and a large section of that pipeline runs through the Mirabella development where I live. To date, I have not seen anyone from Colonial provide any reassurances to the people of Huntersville as to the long-term environmental impacts of the spill, and that living near the largest gas spill in the United States this century isn't cause for alarm or concern. My understanding is that Colonial has been asked to come here, but they either rejected or ignored that request. I urge you to force representatives from Colonial to hold Q&A sessions with the board or directly with those who live near the spill. I don't know if that means you have to revoke permits to get them here or involve state senators and congressmen. And if you can get them here, I would hope you'd ask them these questions. How antiquated is the pipeline that it took 2 guys on dirt bikes in the woods to alert them of the leak? What measures have been taken to ensure this never happens again? Will an escrow account be created to compensate any of the homeowners who experience health issues or need to move because of the spill? And lastly, will any of Colonial Pipeline's representatives be willing to drink well water from within a half mile of the spill in front of the entire town to prove it's safe? Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Some good questions. Our next speaker is Mr. Bill Russell. Good evening. Please state your name and address. You have 3 minutes.
Bill Russell, 9449 Mount Holly, Huntersville Road, President of Lake Norman Chamber of Commerce. As Melinda Bales just pointed out a little while ago in the EDC report, corporations and businesses and new residents are finding Huntersville and the surrounding area simply a great place to live and work. Many of the factors that determine that, number one is health care, making sure we have the health care resources to take care of their families and their employees, but also education is central to that decision. And with the growth of Huntersville, so grows the demand for high-quality child care. Huntersville Community Preschool is modeled after the Goddard School, which is right down below the Chamber of Commerce, and so I've been able to watch that school for several years. Located on Sam Fur, this school with daycare traffic is less oriented to peak hours and is more dispersed throughout the day since parents arrive at different times. A child care center is supported by the town's 2040 plan that we heard about a little while ago for this property, and the area will be a great resource for existing and new families in Huntersville and surrounding Lake Norman region. From a commerce perspective, the school will create an annual payroll of $1.44 million, and the vast majority of those employed living here in Huntersville and the surrounding area will be employed there. From the Lake Norman Chamber of Commerce, we encourage you to support this rezoning request. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Mr. Mike Russell, no relation, as you can hear by his comments. Please state your name and address.
Thanksgiving would be a little difficult there, Bill, if
3
we were
minutes.
related. Mike Russell, 17443 Glassfield Drive. It's in the Cambridge Grove neighborhood. My wife and I moved to our house in February of 1999. The last time I presented before the board, it was in a capacity as the town's representative to the governor's I-77 Advisory Committee. I am not here tonight to talk about I-77, so no need to run for the exits. I am here to talk about the rezoning of that piece of property on Sam Fur. You've heard from my friends, my neighbors, your constituents in opposition to this rezoning. I could not be more against this rezoning and agree with my friends and neighbors. This is the wrong project in the wrong space. What's the correct project for that? I have no idea. I do know that this is the wrong one. The developer talks about creating 50 jobs and serving over 150 students. That will create over 300 unique car trips per day. And those trips will happen during the peak hours on 73, between 7 and 9 in the morning and 4 and 6 in the afternoon, Monday through Friday. I could go on about the traffic impact, but I'm sure that my friends and neighbors will talk about that later. What I ask you as commissioners, do not make the same mistake that your colleagues did in Cornelius, when they ignored the will of 7 neighborhoods and by a simple majority approved the construction of a 500-foot cell tower. You are hearing from over 500 residents as represented by the HOA and my friends and neighbors here in opposition to this. So I ask you again, listen to my friends, my neighbors, your constituents. Do not approve the rezoning of that property. Thank you.
Thank you. So just as a decorum note, we don't cheer and we don't clap, okay? So our next speaker is Miss Shelley Quinn. Good evening. Please state your name and address. You have 3 minutes.
Hello, I'm Shelley Quinn. I live in Denver, but I was a resident of Hampton Ridge for 9 years, from 1999 to 2008. I currently have an office off of 73 in Birkdale Crossing. I was a member of the North Carolina Highway 73, Sam Fur Road, US 21 Transportation and Land Use Vision Small Area Plan Steering Committee. It's a mouthful. I am here today to urge you to vote against the petition 21-01 to rezone 10205 Sam Fur Road from GR Residential to HC Commercial. and here's why. The small area plan that exists today originated from a need to develop area-specific plans to accompany the NCDOT NC 73 Transportation Land Use Corridor Plan. This bigger plan needed more area-specific details to match the needs of the communities along the corridor, because they recognized that one size does not fit all, and the corridor plan needed to reflect that. This plan was a massive planning project that encompassed stakeholders from a coordinated, multi-jurisdictional region, including 3 counties, 5 municipalities, 3 chambers of commerce, 2 metropolitan planning organizations, 1 rural planning organization, and NCDOT. It was a huge undertaking, and it was well facilitated. It was an excellent plan because it not only included transportation needs, but it also included land use along the corridor. It recognized there is an essential link between the land use and the transportation that still exists. What this planning process accomplished was to take what the community said they needed and weave it into the final product. This small area plan may have been adopted in 2006, but the vision still exists. Connectivity, relief to traffic congestion, open space, individual identities, and character were important then, and they are still important now. I urge you to listen to these communities and act accordingly. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Mr. John Bryan, and my understanding is Tim O'Rourke and Jeff Thousand. Are they here? Yes. Okay. Well, you have 9 minutes.
I'm not going to need 9 minutes, but
Please state your name and address, please.
I'll get it right this time. John Bryan, 16813, Hampton Crossing.
You're going to have to adjust that mic a little bit.
All right, is this better? That's
Thank
John
you.
Bryan at 16813, Hampton Crossing Drive. I want to thank the board for letting us speak. We really appreciate you allowing us to do so. Now, I also want to take a little time here to extend gratitude to my neighbors. Almost 80% of you let us know that you do not want this property to be rezoned to commercial highway. I never thought so many people in our community would network and mobilize and contribute to this process. This group entailed engineers, landscape architects, entrepreneurs, stay-at-home mothers and fathers, HOA board members, public servants, retired military, bankers, teachers, attorneys, and we've even got a retired New Jersey plumber on our team as well. Right there. He helps me build my cars. People have reached out to me from all over the community, folks on Knoxwood Drive, Highway 73, Old and New Statesville Road, the Hamptons, Cambridge Grove, Hampton Ridge, and Caldwell Station. It's been tough just walking my dogs without being stopped now, without this project getting into the conversation mix. What a body of engaged citizenry I've grown to discover. I know we'll continue to work together in our community to help shape it in the mold we the people want it to be. I also want to thank the Huntersville Planning Board, who by majority voted to reject the endorsement of rezone to commercial highway for purpose FAR 2101. You are the subject matter experts who reviewed this and ultimately decided commercial highway and this project does not work for this land. So we thank you. I represent our community concerns regarding stormwater. I think I've demonstrated enough flawed design, info, property damage imagery, and maintenance concerns of sample sites to explain why a project like this gives our community pause. Any reasonable person who saw what was in those photos would be concerned. In addition, we contend different uses of this property, residential versus commercial, may have congruent storm ordinance requirements, but it certainly does not mean stormwater solution types must be congruent. If medium density residential were built on that property as preceding small area plan Highway 73 US 21 plan reads, page 21 to be exact, We envision something like sidewalks, drains, underground water pipes, etc. You get the general idea. A final point on water. Any large commercial project reducing permeability is going to send more water to our neighbors on McDowell Creek. The flow of water can be controlled, but more water will be sent downhill as a result of this project, full stop. It's unsettling the town decides what's built here, but we must go to Mecklenburg County, as I understand it, to resolve these issues after 2 years when the bond is released. It's additionally unsettling that the town planning report states in a single sentence this project does not pose any negative impact to our environment, among other things, yet cites no report, no environmental study from town or state or federal bodies. Nothing to support this very broad claim. Let me switch gears a bit to address some general ideas circulating that are miscellaneous that I wanted to address. First, the idea that we should accept Project R2101 because it could be something worse in its place. While on the surface R2101 concept may seem like a good idea, when you look deeper, you would be challenged to think of another business concept that would blast hundreds of cars in morning and afternoon peak traffic times other than this concept. What concept would be worse in this regard? Catherine Graffey on the planning board hit the nail on the head when she said, we cannot approve this because there could be something else worse down the line. We're voting on this project, R2101, tonight, not what could or we fear might be. Second, there seems to be a notion that since our neighborhood is along an NCDOT superhighway concept and adjacent to AAA Auto on the west side, we should just accept this rezone. That it's contradicting or inconsistent or an inconsistent line of thinking if we do not agree to more commercial. I've lived here almost 20 years. There was no superhighway when I moved here, just so you know. There was an abandoned home on that property. It's still there. I believe it existed circa the 60s, that's my guess. Even when I moved there, that was a country road, a 2-lane country road. And there was nothing commercial adjacent to Cambridge Grove. It may have been commercial property, but not commercial structure. So I just want to let people know who've been there a long time. I can assure you, many folks bought property with none of these items in mind. We accept the risk of general residential and all it entails, just as the applicant must accept the risk that they bought this property zoned as general residential and all that entails. Last, the #1 planning report action item on their punch list in order for that body to endorse, which they did not endorse, was that the small area plan Highway 73 US 21 be amended if this project is voted through. #1 item on their punch list. I want to quote this. I want to quote the only planning board member who was strongly for R2101, Greg Baber, I believe is his name, as it relates to this. I quote, I did put this in the request. I mean that changing that small area plan again may not be something that someone's comfortable with, but I did put that in the request that if this is approved, that the small area plan will be updated for Sanford Highway 21. So if it's updated, it wouldn't be violating it. Unquote. We contend that this plan gives us standing, that this is wrong. And we further contend that the rules cannot be changed while the game is being played, or even after in this special case, since it's documented in the planning report, action items, and public domain, that it's being called to amend this small area plan in response to this commercial highway rezone. That could be challenged. You are chosen elected leaders of our community. All executives managing businesses, professions, and hundreds of projects like ours at 30,000 foot level. It could not possibly be expected that you would know all the details of the town documents and the nuances of every street, every corner, every bus stop. We wouldn't expect you to. This is what this public process is for. It's to vet the details so you can make the right decision. Let this process work. It's never too late to make the right call. Your planning department and the public are both telling you this rezone is not right for this property. We're asking for your vote. We hope you follow the recommendation of these bodies and vote no. Thanks.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Burl Jackson, and my understanding is Andrea and Scott Sanders. Are you here? Is Andrea here? Okay, thank you. Good evening. Please state your name and address. You have 9 minutes.
I'm Beryl Jackson. I live at 10,422 Friars Gate Road in Huntersville. And I want to express to you that our communities did not immediately jump to conclusions when we heard about this project. We surveyed our residents to determine how our neighbors felt. Once we determined there was a majority that opposed the rezoning by over 80%, we formed a task force to research what the community cared about the most and how we should position ourselves to respectfully make our position known to our appointed and elected representatives. Our homeowners fear impacts on their property values due to the change in zoning in our community. They invested in their properties with an expectation that it was all going to be residential. Scott Hensley very eloquently stated this in his motion. This expectation is supported in Land Use Policy Statement 11 that references protecting existing housing stock. I also urge you to read this motion that Mr. Hensley gave during the planning board meeting on page 11 of your staff report. If we're looking forward while thinking back, as the 2040 plan suggests, think about when our neighborhood was built. Common open spaces were all the buzz and still is in the Environment and Open Space Policy section of the 2040 plan. And now it is suggested that we once again erode the common spaces by allowing easements to pave the way for this massive project. We are conflicted about what the town really wants. We have very proudly owned and maintained both our personal property and the common open space for 24 years. Some of us are original owners, and while it appears this would be an ideal community for this project, take a look at the age of the community. Many of us are retired, and our children are grown and gone. We are likely to help the town reach the goal of the most livable community in North Carolina by 2040. We, the town core, take pride in our homes, our properties, and our community. Our vision of our community mirrors page 34 of the small area plan for our region. We have a vision of well-connected, pedestrian-friendly, and publicly inviting streets and open space. We represent a large part of the residential source of income for the town. So why do we need to fill every crack of available land with commercial to the displeasure of your bedrock source of income? At the public hearings, you heard testimony from some of our younger property owners that they cannot afford this facility. And in subsequent public meetings, town officials wanted to know why our HOAs voted no to granting easement through our common open spaces. Our community surveys laid the foundation for our votes. We surveyed our communities, and we surveyed and found what they fear: the loss of property value due to the commercial zoning, and that is not an unfounded fear. Potential flooding of multiple properties in 2 communities adjacent to the proposed site, and most of all, more traffic on top of an already challenging segment of 73. A large commercial building footprint and paved parking lot is not in character with the surrounding single-family properties. It is inconsistent with the zoning amendment process Article 11.4.7E1. You should also know that the bond secured at construction to assure owners maintain the stormwater control measure is released in 2 years for good behavior. Then what? You have pictures of what could happen. So in consideration of the 2040 plan, land use policy statement 6.3, page 63, we urge that this is not a small-scale neighborhood serving project, because it's not small-scale. Due to the close proximity of the entrances of 2 very large adjoining neighborhoods, rezoning to commercial would be detrimental to the health, safety, and well-being of the 870 homes that surround the property and anyone who travels in that 0.2 mile stretch of 73. We are not willing to provide easements through our common open space and erode our quality of life or the environmental integrity of this required space that we have worked so hard to maintain over the years. Nor are we willing to disrupt highly utilized public sidewalks that connect our communities. This space is located in the McDowell Creek watershed. The county has spent considerable dollars to protect this watershed and creek that are both in our communities. Please reference these 6 2040 plan land use policy statements. LU4, page 63, limit the scale of non-residential development in critical watershed. L5.3, support infill housing near services and shopping. In fact, we rather like the idea of possibly partnering this policy with the senior and restricted housing options, such as patio homes. Land use policy statement 11, we've already mentioned that, which indicates that you will protect existing housing stock and you will protect it from negative impacts of development. In transportation policy statement 1, page 91, you talk about linking land use with transportation, which is the plan of the corridor plan, and why Ms. Quinn came today to talk to you about that small area plan and how it is specific to that region, and it linked land use and transportation. Transportation Statement 3.2, page 100, improve multimodal connectivity and support enhanced pedestrian connection. Environmental and open space policy statement 1, page 82, support preservation and enhancement of the natural environment. Please vote no for this partial to be rezoned from general residential to highway commercial. Think about whether this petition is reasonable and in the public interest. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Mr. Randy Peacock, and my understanding is Donna Thousand. Okay, and Dacian Mate. Okay. Good evening.
I won't talk 9 minutes. I promise you that. My name is Randolph
Go
Peacock.
ahead. Please state your name and address. You have 9 minutes.
Okay, thank you. My name is Randolph Peacock. I live at 17209 Cambridge Grove Drive. I'm also here tonight representing the Cambridge Grove HOA, and we have many of our neighbors with us tonight, and we appreciate their support. But in addition to the residential street, Cambridge Grove serves as 2 additional and distinct traffic control objectives, which unfortunately are often in conflict with one another. We come before you today to ask that you please not rezone the R2101 property from commercial development with peak demand during rush hour. This will make an almost intolerable situation significantly worse and increase congestion as well as the probability of an accident. In summary, the first objective is that of a major neighborhood connector, where Cambridge Grove Drive also serves as the balance of Cambridge Grove, as well as much of Hampton Ridge and Caldwell Station, which is fine because the road was designed for that. It's wider to help accommodate the traffic. Unfortunately, later on, when Highway 73 was widened, they introduced the concept of a restricted conflict intersection, RCI, or some people call it superhighway, okay, where people on Highway 73 who are eastbound can make a U-turn and go westbound. Okay. Unlike the sister intersection at the reverse at Rich Hatchet, there's a light, and frankly, I've used that. Light makes a big difference in being able to make a U-turn there. Those at Camden Groves do not have a light, so it's much riskier for them. And Barry Colvin sent out an email with a video that showed what it's like for someone trying to make that U-turn in the morning. And I'll be honest with you, I thought we had a problem trying to make a right turn. Those that are making U-turns have it much worse. To me, those people have nerves of steel to put up with that each morning. And basically, that as a community, we worked hard to make these dual objectives work. It's not an ideal situation, but in the spirit of cooperation with the town and the DOT, we're trying to do everything we can. But unfortunately, if the property is rezoned, this is going to make the situation much worse. And so we ask instead that we come together as a community on the same side of the table to help solve this problem together and not make a mistake that we'll live to regret later on. Thank you very much. Appreciate the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Peacock. Our next speaker is Richard Kirkman, and Dana Bryan is given. Okay, thank you. Good evening. Please state your name and address. You have 6 minutes.
My name is Richard Kirkman. My address 16509 Sutter's Run Lane. I have lived in the Hamptons community for 20 years now. I'm a registered engineer, and I've spent the last 30 years building roads and bridges in North Carolina. My company will soon be kicking off the much-needed Gilead Road interchange project in just a few weeks. You guys know that it's been delayed. I'm here to request that you recommend no to the commercial zoning of this property, R2101. I've studied the rezoning application, associated traffic impact analysis. I've been in contact with Stephen Trott, my colleagues within Division 10 of the NCDOT, regarding several issues with both the traffic impact analysis and the rezoning application in general. These issues have been discussed with the Planning Board, Stephen Trott, Bradley Priest over the past few weeks. I'm just going to list these issues out. Number one, reduction of the storage length for the right turn into the daycare. As indicated in the TIA by the traffic engineer, the NCDOT turn lane warrant threshold indicates a minimum of 125-foot storage based on facility specifics and design. It's clear there would be a conflict with the entrance to Hampton Ridge, so it appears NCDOT and the town have allowed a reduction of this required taper to squeeze in the daycare driveway. Considering the location and existing and proposed safety issues, such as the shared right turn lane, traffic exiting Hampton Ridge, limited sight distance to the existing vertical curve, U-turning traffic, we feel the squeezing in of this driveway is dangerous and deserves more review. Issue number two, shared turn lane. The developers propose an extension of the right turn lane for Cambridge Grove Drive to accommodate right turn movements into both the daycare and Cambridge Grove. This could result in numerous unsafe vehicle movements for rush hour vehicles trying to both enter and exit the daycare and enter the Cambridge Grove neighborhood during the same time frame, compounding other issues like sight distance. Remembering there's only one entrance and exit proposed. Sight distance review. From a review of the sight distance profile included in the rezoning package, it appears the profile grades were generated by use of GIS data versus an on-site survey using established vertical control. In my experience, having done this a long time, GIS data lacks the accuracy needed to perform a survey of this scope. Considering, if you look at the package and the plans, the rough GIS topo indicates the sight distance is just a few inches from being non-compliant. It's also important to note that if the proposed driveway is shifted west, which we've heard mentioned, this will negatively impact the sight line. The TIE traffic count did not follow the town's own TIE manual by collecting data at reduced morning and afternoon timeframes. We're concerned about reducing the morning data collection window. The TIE fails to capture the trips generated in counts for those vehicles and buses traveling to local schools every morning between 6:15 a.m. and 7 a.m. School starts early in this area, as you guys know, and thousands of students on buses and in personal vehicles are traveling east on Sam Fur and attempting to turn left onto NC 115 every morning. Number 5 issue, the TIA doesn't address the real possibility of cut-through traffic backing up on Hampton Crossing each morning. So that's all I have. I do want to close with the following kind of comments and questions. Question number 1, why did the town consider an incomplete traffic impact analysis that does not comply with the town's own rules for one of the busiest roads in the city? Question number 2, if this is approved, how will the developer address the site distance issue that exists during the driveway permit phase with NCDOT? I'm well aware of those rules and what the DOT requires, and it's extensive, and they're going to require a proper sight line done. Is the developer prepared to spend their money, all the money that it will take to correct this site distance issue? That's all I had. Thank you.
All right, thank you, and get that project moving. All right, next speaker is Miss Mary Colvin. Speaking for herself only. So please state your name and address. You have 3 minutes.
Yes, that is correct. My name is Mary Colvin. I live at 16509 Rudyard Lane in the Hamptons, and I've lived there for 10 years now. Last week, I sent all of you a short video of what traffic was like at 7:55 on a random weekday last week. Our 870 families in our 3 neighborhoods deal with this particular section of road multiple times on a daily basis. Thank you to Mayor Annarella, Mayor Pro Tem Bales, and Commissioner Walsh for letting me know that you received it and had a chance to watch the video. If you did not, or if you did not have a chance to travel this section of road, you will see in that video 45-mile-an-hour plus traffic racing over a blind spot as workers, commuters, and others are rushing to get to I-77. You also saw how much blind faith it takes to turn into that oncoming traffic and accelerate into a U-turn from a dead stop while watching for our neighbors like Randy Peacock exiting Cambridge Grove, facing a similar challenging situation. Add to this 700 daily trips, according to the TIA, generated by the daycare center, and 58 school bus runs between the hours of 6:15 and 8:50 a.m., and it becomes a tragedy waiting to happen. Is this a situation of a square peg in a round hole? Sounds basic, but I think it applies. At quick glance and viewed from much further away, it might just fit. This daycare center might just fit in the middle of these 2 neighborhoods. What's not to like? However, when examined more closely and carefully, you begin to see it cannot fit. Why? Look at your own town plan, section 11.4.7E. Look at safety concerns we have brought to your attention. Traffic, 780 daily trips from that new property, flooding concerns, etc. The only way to make this square peg fit is to grant exception after exception after exception. Our neighborhood coalition, your own planning board and staff engineers have showed why it is not a good fit. Even granting numerous exceptions or making the whole square to accommodate the peg does not make it a good fit. We are asking you to make your decision based on the request in front of you, not what might be or what might be implied could be on that site. Even planning board member Catherine Graffey said, make a decision on the application in front of you. That is the process. It is not a decision of, is this square peg better than a star-shaped peg? It is only a decision about this specific request. This site for this particular daycare center is not in the best interest of Huntersville citizens. Please deny this rezoning request, and thank you respectfully for all your time.
Thank you. Thank you all. I believe nobody else is, signed up. All right, thank you. Any agenda changes?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. We do have one agenda change. We would like to remove item 9E from the agenda and place it on the June 7th agenda.
Okay,
Motion to approve the agenda as amended?
Second?
okay. Any discussion? All those in favor? All right. Excuse me. Well, we have a couple of public hearings tonight. Planning board members here? Introduce yourselves.
Good evening, Derek Partee, Planning Board. Frank Gannon, Planning Board.
Okay. Item 8A is to open up a public hearing to receive comments on the proposed budget for fiscal year 2021 to 2022. Nobody has signed up to speak. It's not a daycare center, so.
I thought everybody was here for this. I could just say one word, tax rate's gonna stay the same and sit down, but,
Okay.
let's see. I'll make it quick if I can get this thing to work. Yeah, there we go. So I'll summarize, I think we have about 10 slides. I'll summarize briefly because I'm sure the folks didn't come hear me speak tonight.
Well, I think they should be happy with that at least.
Well, right, the 24-cent tax rate stayed the same. So the general fund is, and I'm gonna do round numbers, is roughly 57 million for FY 22 budget. With the other funds, enterprise funds, the special revenue funds, all included in that, the total budget is roughly $92.5 million. What the FY 22 county estimates our assessed value to be over $10.6 billion. First time we've been over 10 billion. As I said before, tax rate recommended stay the same at 24 cents. Solid waste fee will be increased from for additional $25 up to $109 annually. This will pay for roughly 51% of the solid waste collection. Stormwater fees, the board had voted on to increase those stormwater fees to handle various projects that we have in town. This is based on various categories of what your impervious surface is for both residential and commercial. No increases to the vehicle fee. As far as the personnel expenditures that are in this budget, there are 10 new positions funded in this budget. You have a PIO, 2 planning positions, and a plan review and engineering. Those 3 positions alone, all related to development. As you've heard me state many times, 2020 development was crazy. The calendar year for 2021 is even crazier. The last quarter is up another 5 to 7% over top of what it was before. So it is gangbusters with residential, commercial, industrial, all over the board. Other positions that we have are 2 part-time positions that have been converted to full-time, which is administrative assistant at Town Hall and a Parks Program leader position. You probably heard a little while ago on the 30-30 plan, one of the things that we're sort of lacking is sidewalk and multi-purpose path connections. We're actually bringing in a 4-man, 1-man crew for Public Works. A half year is funded for sidewalk crew to hopefully start knocking a dent in that. You saw a picture earlier, that sidewalk there by Outback in that area that they're working on now. You'll see a lot more of that in town. What's proposed in here from a merit COLA standpoint, 1% COLA, 2.5 merit. As for the sworn officers that are below midpoint, we're doing a 2% market adjustment. And then we're raising the sworn officer starting pay to $46,500 and also creating separate ranges for PD. From an operating and debt expenditure side of things, fire department contribution is increasing by $150,000. Additional costs for solid waste, obviously more homes, fuel surcharges, et cetera, landfill costs. That's what those costs are associated with. We talked about sidewalks earlier. From a pile bill side of things, where you're going to see a lot of work on the ADA side of things and sidewalks and also building new sidewalks. That's what that increase is all about. Planning department, you heard earlier at the pre-meeting, the downtown study and the mobility study, net cost on that's $150,000. The original cost was roughly $250,000, but we'll seek funding from other agencies. From the debt side of things, no debt service payments funded in FY22, but the total debt service of FY22 is slightly down by roughly $264,000 at roughly $4.7 million debt service. And then on the general fund capital side of things, we haven't changed the number. We're going to be talking about the town hall design pre-construction night, which is actually 900 some thousand dollars we'll be talking about later tonight. 1.3 was a placeholder before, but the board has not voted on that. There are multiple capital projects. It's a very capital intensive budget. Obviously, some of these numbers are not the full cost of those projects, but as you know, when we do these road projects, it takes multiple years to get to construction. You know, you're looking at design, right-of-way, engineering, and you're getting to building. So these are not full numbers like Stumptown Road Extension, Commerce Center Drive. These are the dollars that are in FY22. Farrelltown Parkway, multiple resurfacing park improvements at various playgrounds, pour and play playgrounds to resurfacing basketball courts, purchasing new land for fire station to some more storage at Siegel facility for Parks and Rec. Police also, Church Street Extension is another project from Holbrook to Delwood, Gibson Park Phase 2, design on North Meck Park Greenway, and then various vehicles and equipment related to either police vehicles to salt spreaders to various trucks for the sidewalk crew, et cetera. Other funds that has capital related to it, transportation reserve funds. Those funds are used for road projects. You have Ranson Road project continuing, various Siegel improvements. Tourism funds, we're starting either a new bathroom or expansion at Berry Park. The Commerce Station, continue to fund the EDC projects. Powell Bill is, as I stated earlier, ADA sidewalks, new sidewalks, and land development fee increase for the additional staffing, the 3 staff members that are involved. And then from the enterprise fund side of things, the electric rate increase, you'll see due to the cost to serve study, where we have to put in new substation, backfeed some of the, loop the system together. You'll see some rate increases for residential. Lighting is more street lighting, medium industrial and large industrial. There are no changes to the commercial, medium commercial rate side of things, but there's a big heavy use of fund balance in the electric fund, and that's all due to trying to bring on a substation and also to loop the system together so that we can accommodate for additional residential, commercial, industrial, et cetera. That's on the system. For HFFA, with COVID, obviously their budget is down, but they've done quite well to be in the COVID times, and we anticipate that coming back up. They are, capital's a little bit short in FY22 as they sort of ramp back up, and now that we're without masks, and hopefully memberships will start to kick back in. But they will be looking at replacing equipment, also in the fitness equipment leasing, equipment in the facility itself to hopefully generate more folks come inside the facility. ARPA funding, you've heard a lot about this. American Recovery, Mayor, you mentioned a little bit earlier on those funds. We'll learn more. What we have learned so far is that, as you stated earlier,
Not good.
it doesn't look like 17. It's looking more like a $5 million number. So we're not excited about that, and we're working, staff and mayor and board are working with our legislators to try to figure out how we can be made whole on that due to the funding mechanism they put in place. Hopefully we'll get more information on that. As we learn more on that, we'll be coming back to the board to discuss more on that. As far as the next steps with the budget process, the workshop, the public hearing tonight, I would tell you, if you're bored, stay at home, read 186 pages of this budget document. I would spend my time on the manager's message. It's about 9 pages, 8 or 9 pages. And then also look at the CIP, very intensive, heavy CIP. So I'd look at those few pages of what's in what I'd say is the capital improvement plan for the next 5 years, and read the manager's message, and you'll get a good overall view of it. It's posted on our website. Hopefully we're here for the public tonight, got all these people here, and come back to the board and hopefully adopt the budget June 7th. That's it, Mayor. I know y'all have heard it umpteen times.
Any questions or comments? I'll just make a comment, since I won't be here next year. The COLA, I've been a merit guy, and if you're looking at PPI and the CPI this year, the last week, highest in decades. So you might want to revisit that. I think merit is the way to go. Well, that's my comment. Yes, Ms. Commissioner Phillips?
Daggers and arrows are getting ready to come this way, and I'm perfectly okay with it. So something I've been talking with Anthony about is the last time the board had a raise, which was 2013. And we have had the benefit of Jackie and Anthony looking into things, and Huntersville, compared to other municipalities at our size, population-wise, our boards don't get paid equitably. And I say that because I get paid by the hour. I sit here, and as I sit here, I lose a day's worth of work. And then I have these conversations with regular citizens who say, I would love to do that, but I can't afford it. And I talk to moms who would love to do this, and they say, oh, well, the child care can't even be covered by what you guys make a year. So I would like to maybe entertain some form of bumping the pay up as the board, especially since it is an election year, so we can open it up for more types of people to be able to afford to do this job. Because I think it's ridiculous that people who want to serve this community literally can't afford to, and we're missing out on some really great potential commissioners. So I just wanted to throw that out there, because I think it's a conversation worth having, especially after learning like Gastonia, not Gaston County, but like Gastonia makes $17,000 a year, which I think is wild. But $8,000 to do this annually is not how you have regular working class people sitting on this dais. So I would like to maybe entertain that as a possible budget thing. And y'all can start throwing stuff at me if you want to. It's okay.
Commissioner Boone had a...
Oh, sorry.
Yes, the 2% adjustment for the police officers that are under the mid-range, how did you settle on 2%, not 5%, 1%? Where did that percentage come from?
Yeah, we looked at multiple things. Obviously, we looked at what other agencies are doing. You know, looked at sort of turnover. We looked at Charlotte. Obviously, we compete with Charlotte to see what their starting range is. The one thing we want to do is get the entry level up. And that's why you saw the 46.5 to get that entry level up to really compete with Charlotte and be above the other agencies, so that we could obviously attract more folks to get in that line of business. Obviously, I don't need to tell you about how the national news is and police force, et cetera, and how they kind of get beat up. But once you raise that entry level up to that 46.5, also, you know, where you typically lose your officers in those sort of early years, I'd say that sort of 1 to 5 years. So the officers that we already had there, we need to also make some adjustments there. And one of the things that you know, we want to try to do is continue to move them up to the median. You know, the 2%, 3%, there was no rhyme or reason. We were just taking all of those various variables together and look to see where we need to be. But, you know, was 3 the right number, 4 the right number, 5 number? When we looked at all the various entities out there and agencies, 2% adjustment up to medium seemed to be the right mix.
And where did you come up with the 2.5 for the merit increase? And
So-
what is the 2.5 going to cost us? And if we went to 3.5, what would the cost there be?
So we looked at the various towns around us, and in speaking to the various city managers, we make, this happens every year, we kind of see what other agencies are doing around us. And the average sort of merit COLA is in the 3.5 range. Some a lot higher, some a little lower. The average is around 3.5. That's merit COLA mix. So the board had previously directed me last fiscal year to move to COLA merit. So that's why you see COLA merit split. And that was the direction you had given me the last fiscal year. So COLA, as we continue to look at that, I think it was like 1.2 when we looked at it. We rounded it to 1, and then the merit to 2.5 to get the two together, 3.5, to be in line with the other municipalities that we, surround us.
Well, I just think that you're just looking at the police department, we're understaffed. We've had 2 female officers assaulted in the last month. We've had an officer smacked in the face, and people aren't lining up to work this type of job. I think that if we want a quality person, we're gonna have to pay for it.
And I think that's part of the reason why we're doing that bump. Also, that market adjustment for that, to make sure that we get at some of those concerns to, we got to fill some seats.
Thank you.
Commissioner Walsh?
Yeah, I was going to echo some of Commissioner Phillips' comments. It's interesting. I'm retired, and $8,000 a year isn't moving the needle for me, so I probably don't have the same needs as others. But in order to attract a more diverse board, it would seem that a discussion around the compensation is warranted. It's probably long overdue, and so I think we should at least bring it up as a discussion. And I don't know what the magic number is. I haven't thought it out, but it probably would be helpful for attracting other candidates who aren't either retired, independently wealthy, or have some other form of compensation.
And Mayor, I had a sheet to sort of show you tonight, but evidently we're having some technical difficulties. But I did look at the population 25 to, the league puts out what they call a salary survey for all the towns. This is where we get a lot of our information. It also has a mayor pay, mayor pro tem, and the board pay as part of that salary survey that the staff sends back into that analysis. And on that 25 to 99,000 population range of those towns, the average salary for the mayor is, assuming they put in the numbers right now, is $14,500. I'm rounding, 14,501. And for the mayor pro tem pay is $10,500, 10,448. And board member pay is $9,569. So just in comparison for Huntersville, obviously we're one of the top sort of population in that range. We're in the top, we're like number 6 or 7 in that 25 to 99 range. Our board pay is $8,000. The average is, just say, $9,600. Mayor pro tem, ours is $8,500. The average is $10,500. And mayor pay, ours is $14,000. The average is $14,500.
Commissioner Munger?
Yeah, I just kind of want to follow up also on Commissioner Boone's comments. It came to my attention, and Jackie, you can tell me if I was wrong in my interpretation. We have 5 officers who are retiring in the next year from the police department.
We have 5 officers that retired in '21.
In 21? Okay, so.
In FY '21, and we have to pay that separation allowance once they qualify for retirement. Larry has pulled up the spreadsheet Anthony was just referring to about board pay.
Okay, and Jackie's point is, I had a question about a specific line item, and I wasn't aware that we actually are having 5 officers retiring. And, I mean, we're already below staff, we have more people retiring, we have the normal attrition. This is becoming, in my mind, a real dire situation that we need to do absolutely whatever we can to get more officers in. And we also need to look at the possibility, I've said it before, of bringing in, like, I hate to use the term because people shudder when they hear it, but social workers to address non-lethal situations where they can assist and allow officers to actually do the job that they need to do rather than deal with mental health care situations. So I'm just a big proponent, whatever we can do to give them the resources they need. I absolutely hope we push further.
All right. Well, I guess we're going to have additional discussion at some point in the next 3 weeks, right?
Maybe. So that's kind of up to the board. I know we're trying to coordinate some dates, but I think quite a few folks may have some vacations, et cetera, coming up. But we'll need to work through that after tonight, see what feedback we get, and see if the board would like to have additional workshop or workshops.
Okay. All right, well, we'll close this public hearing, and we'll get back to you on that. Our next public hearing we'll open up is conduct a public hearing on petition Annex 21-02, a request by Skybrook West LLC to annex 21.04 acres called the Billings property into the town of Huntersville. Mr. Pete, how are you this evening?
Good, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. I want to enter the staff report into the record. Annexation 2102, as you said, is a 21.5 acres annexation, non-contiguous. This is located on the extreme eastern side of the jurisdiction of Huntersville along Eastfield Road. It is sandwiched between existing Skybrook and the Cabarrus County line. There is a portion of the 3 parcels pursuing annexation that reside in Cabarrus County, and I'll go over that in just a minute. The applicant is Skybrook West LLC, one of the branches of the Skybrook development. The property owners are listed in your report, and all of the statutory requirements for this process have been satisfied for this evening. I want to bring, this is the plat of the property, and you can see the long line that runs longitudinally through the development would be the Cabarrus County line. You have the square piece in the middle that's on the Cabarrus side, and then the property to the north of it, and then the bow tie shaped piece closer to the single family lots is the one that is within Mecklenburg. There are specific requirements for when a property is closer to another jurisdiction than yours when you're doing a non-contiguous annexation. And the analysis of those particular tests are shown. I won't necessarily read each one, but just very quickly, number 1 is that you cannot be more than 3 miles from your primary boundaries, and that would be what we kind of consider the 77, 21, 115 core, if you will. This property sits at 2.10 miles from that boundary. Number 2 is that it cannot be closer to another municipality than yours. This one is actually closer to Concord, and I'll get to that in just a second. Number 3, that you'll be able to provide all the same services to the property you're annexing that you do to all the other properties in the town of Huntersville, and that is something that we can do. Number 4 is that the property is not subdivided, because you cannot take a part of a subdivision. This particular property, or all 3 of these properties rather, there is only 1 house, the rest is vacant, so it is not a subdivision. And then lastly, your satellite annexations, or those which do not touch the primary boundaries that I mentioned a second ago, you cannot have more than 10% of that area in your jurisdiction. And we are currently at 8.2%, and this particular annexation doesn't move that needle. We're still at 8.2%.
I think Ms. Sloop had
Just for clarification purposes, B5 in that section actually doesn't apply to Huntersville.
The last section?
Correct.
Well, it was no change in that one anyway. But thank you for that update. So the last portion, the number 2 that I wanted to come back to was that the property is closer to Concord than it is to Huntersville. And so there is a provision in the state law for that, and we contacted the city of Concord, their staff, as well as their board, to ask their interest in the property and if they would be willing to waive that interest. And so you can see before you that this is a copy on April the 8th of this year. They passed a resolution stating that they would waive their interest in this property. So it is eligible for annexation by the town of Huntersville. We have satisfied all of the other requirements regarding public notice, et cetera. I am here to answer any other questions, as well as the town attorney, and the applicant's representative, Mr. Scott Moore, is here as well.
Any questions? Commissioner Hines?
Mr. Pete, thank you. Just one question. So with this currently not being subdivided, if someone were to come for a subdivision plat in the future, would the entire parcel being annexed into the town of Huntersville be this board's discretion on whether to approve or not approve it? Would they have to go to Concord for anything?
No, by coming into the town of Huntersville, it would be completely under Huntersville's jurisdiction and our regulations.
So any new residents would be Town of Huntersville, Cabarrus County, at the end of the day.
They would be town of Huntersville residents.
Coming into the town.
But not Mecklenburg County. They'd still be Cabarrus County, but Town of Huntersville.
That's correct.
That's correct, thank you. Okay.
Commissioner Munger?
So kind of similar question. I mean, just in general, we've done annexations, but we've never done an annexation into a separate county. There's no precedent for that.
I don't believe there's one in Huntersville. There are locally, though.
And probably a question for our town attorney. We feel like we've gone through all the legal procedures. We're solid here. We followed the letter of the law, and we shouldn't have any issues, even though we're annexing into a separate county.
Yes, those 5 factors, minus the last one that David went over, are the requirements for a non-contiguous annexation under 160A 58.1, and we have verified that we are in compliance. And as David mentioned, we did get separate board action from Concord pursuant to our non-annexation agreement with them. So yes, we have followed all the requirements.
That's all I got.
Commissioner Bales?
So just to be clear, because I think I got this mixed up. Once this property is annexed and then developed, it is still not in Mecklenburg County?
The boundary lines will change. Huntersville's corporate limits, because this will be part of our satellite corporate limits, will be changed. So yes, they will then become part of Huntersville and subject to our jurisdictional requirements. As to looking at the boundary line of the counties, it's still going to show that it's within, as far as if you look at the hard map, on a map, boundary line there, as typically shown, it would appear as if it were in Cabarrus County, but it is going to be within Huntersville's corporate limits.
So that would be similar to, I would imagine, like Davidson and Iredell County.
Ingersoll Rand is in Iredell County,
Yes.
but they are part of Davidson.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other? All right, we'll close that public hearing. We'll go to other business. Consider decision on petition Annex 21-02, request by Skybrook West LLC to annex 21.04 Billings property into the town of Huntersville. Is there any motion, questions? Commissioner Munger?
I have a motion.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion to approve an ordinance to annex certain non-contiguous areas to the town of Huntersville, North Carolina.
Second.
Second, Commissioner Boone. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor? All right, seeing none opposed, that motion passes. All right, welcome to Huntersville. 9B is consider decision on petition R21-01, a request by Teichler Land Ventures to rezone 10205 Sanford Road from general residential to highway commercial conditional district to develop a daycare center. I do want to note that Burl Jackson and Sandy Denzio did send in emails for the public record prior to 3 o'clock today. Good evening, Mr. Priest.
Good evening. Good to see everyone. I'd like to put the staff report into the record, please. And just wanted to just do a quick update. Again, this is the property on 73 on Sanford Road, going from general residential to highway commercial conditional district. Just want to update everyone on what has transpired since the public hearing, since the application was before the town board in the beginning of April. So a few updates. The applicant has modified their site plan to put in the full required 30-foot buffers. It was at 10 feet on the red arrows there, but they have modified it to 30 feet in both locations. To the west, there was a modification in the building configuration and the grading to give the room needed to make the 30 feet. And along 73, NCDOT approved a small shift of the driveway to the west to allow the 30-foot buffer, to be established along the small out parcel there. That was also zoned residential. So The 30 feet has been updated. In the staff report, it brought out that traffic counts were requested for the leftovers going into Knoxwood Drive and Cambridge Grove Road. And staff received those, and transportation staff reviewed them and stated that with the numbers indicated, that there were no indicators or red flags, as you would, to say that the turn lanes would not be able to function with the addition of the new use, the new daycare use. The applicant submitted a letter as a record, and we forwarded that in the package as well, noting that as part of their enrollment, they would request and urge that the parents, and formalize as part of the enrollment process, that parents not come on 73 and go through the residential property, but to only use the infrastructure on 73 to access the property. So that was received. And again, as you have heard and has been testified by the adjacent property owners, the HOAs have given a denial to the applicant for easements. One on Cambridge Grove Road for access, and then also along 73 on the property there for the sidewalk. So that is information that we've received since the public hearing. This is just information about how they changed the building. The building size has not changed. It's still 16,000 square feet, but it was modified, shifted at the pinch point, so to speak, to allow the 30-foot buffer to be accommodated for. The planning board met to consider the application on April 27th. The recommendation was to deny by a 5-4 vote. And the planning board noted inconsistencies with land use 11.1 policy in the 2040 plan, and that mentioned that it was not in character with the existing surrounding development and not consistent with the 7321 small area plan. And the motion and the full description was in your staff report. So staff recommendation still acknowledges that the GR existing zoning is appropriate based on the 2040 plan policy LU 5.3, but also acknowledges the flexibility built into the 2040 plan in LU 6.2 and LU 6.3 that specifically encourages that mixed use nature in certain conditions. So therefore, staff can support the application with the conditions outlined there, 1 through 4. So that concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Okay. Any questions? Commissioner Munger?
Earlier tonight, there's a comment made about whether or not the TIA was complete. Can you comment on that, whether it actually was complete?
The traffic impact analysis was complete and has been complete for some time. It was accepted by our engineering staff and the mitigation that was proposed in the TIA. So yes, it has been complete.
Okay. And do you have any, there's also a concern about the sightline issues at that particular entrance to it?
So the sightline issues are going to have to be addressed when the applicant comes and constructs the daycare, assuming it is approved. If they come in and when they pull the driveway permit, they'll have to deal with the sightline and construction and the constructability at that time. But all the requirements of NCDOT would be enforced by NCDOT and would need to be met by the applicant at that time.
Thank you.
Commissioner Hines?
Can you go back to the slide about the easement for the sidewalk along Highway 73? I believe I understand the one on Cambridge Grove Drive, because you have to go over that berm. But can you point out where it is on the map on Highway 73?
So
what is the distance of that as well?
Yes, sir. So you see on the very bottom on Samford Road, the red arrow, underneath the red arrow, there is a sidewalk that kind of meanders around some infrastructure there. And that sidewalk is going on to reconnect, because once they put the right turn lane in that's required from the TIA, Once they put that in, they're going to be widening the sidewalk and pushing it out of existing right-of-way onto private property, onto the town of Huntersville's property, and then onto the homeowner association property from Hampton Ridge. So that little bit, that little wedge currently is conceptually shown to be on private property, and the HOA determined that they did not want to give an easement for that sidewalk on private property at this time.
So if this project were approved and built, as shown, we would have a sidewalk that is broken up in this section.
It would be broken up as conceptually shown. The hope that staff would have would be able to go through and work with the applicant to reconstruct, work with NCDOT to try to fit it inside existing right-of-way. If that was not possible, then we'd have to come up with some other way to try to make that happen. But at this time, yes, the situation is that plan shown right there. If there's not an easement, then we'd have to come up with some other way to make that work.
Okay. And a follow-up to another question about the TIA. You said it was complete, but a question came up was, did it follow the town's policies? Did it follow all the check boxes in regards to the TIA?
Yes, I would refer that question to Stephen Trott on that as they were the staff to review that.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Trott.
Good evening. Thank you. So the question was, did the TIA follow every single town policy in the manual? The answer would be no. The traffic counts were short, an hour of time, I believe, both in the morning and in the afternoon. However, due to the pandemic, you try to go out and count traffic now, it's going to be different than what it is. So it was allowed to use traffic counts that were already available. It did count 2 hours of time instead of the normal 3 hours. So it wasn't like they just counted a few minutes and then used it. It was just a shorter period for that traffic count to find the 1 hour of time that's studied.
Okay. So knowing all that with the pandemic, you accepted the TIA as
Yeah,
this
accepted to reduce count times.
Okay. Okay. One other question that came up about reduction in the taper. In the decel lane into the site, reduction in the taper. Is that a Huntersville call or is that an NCDOT?
That'd be an NCDOT call.
NCDOT, okay. And NCDOT's basically approved this curb cut.
Yeah, as far as I know, they found it acceptable.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Commissioner Bowles?
Just a quick question in regards to the stormwater process. It was brought up earlier in regards to the bond secured, and once the stormwater, the BMP pond is created, then there's kind of the 2 years for the bond. What was the next process after that? How do we make sure that stormwater continues, that it actually continues to work, that BMP?
Yes, ma'am. So after the 2 years, then it will continue on a yearly basis, be inspected by Mecklenburg County for continual operation and make sure it's still working and functioning properly.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Commissioner Bowles?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A couple of Saturdays ago, I took my truck and parked out there in front of where this daycare is going to go, and just got out and walked the sidewalk just to kind of get a feel for the traffic and the neighborhood. And while I was out there, a lady was walking on the sidewalk, and I stopped her and introduced myself, and I said, "Can I ask you a few questions?" And she didn't have anything prepared, but she was very candid. I told her about the daycare center. She was very familiar with that. I said, "If you could do one thing to improve the traffic flow here, what would you do?" She didn't even hesitate 1 second. She pointed across the street where you leave this area, you're going west, you make a U-turn going back east. I'm sure you people know what I'm talking about. She said if you just trim those plants back about 18 inches, you could take the line of sight and improve it by 200 feet. Well, the town manager and the assistant town manager and I went out there a couple Fridays ago, and she was exactly right. But those have been trimmed back, and the line of sight has improved. I just want to let you know that we're out there looking at that property and trying to figure out how we can make this work. Thank you.
Commissioner Bales, you have another question?
Somewhat, yes. So, in the middle of doing all of my research for this project, I've gone down, I've looked at the other examples, especially the one in Ballantyne that, and this is going to be a little bit long, my comments, so pardon. The one that down there in kind of the Ballantyne Pineville area, that 16,000 square foot facility, while there's some similarities with this project, it sits in the middle of residential surrounding it. There were some things that I noticed that were different, a lot of things that were different. One, that site down there sits on 2.5 acres, and there's very little in the way of buffer. There is a fence and a row of bushes and backyards, and that's something that jumped out at me, that I know that particular style of project would not fly here in this community. But then I started questioning, are there other locations closer to home that were similar? And the one that I came across actually sits on 73. It is to the west, and it sits in Burkdale. And it's called Guidepost Montessori. Guidepost Montessori fronts 73. It's by roughly 18,000 square feet. It sits on 4.39 acres, surrounded by residential. And on their website, it said infancy to 14 years of age. It's labeled as a school. It sits in general residential zoning. They have a 3-day-a-week program, a 5-day-a-week program, a half-day program, a full-day program, and summer camps. And they're open from 7 to 6:30, Monday through Friday. I say all of this to get to this question, and I'm not trying to get anybody in trouble. But Guidepost Montessori is labeled as school, sitting in general residential zoning. But Mr. Priest, on April the 8th, you sent us an email, and it says in the 4th paragraph, it says, it was noted by the state supervisor that if a program received accreditation for the 3-year to 5-year age program group, but also offered supervisory care for infants, a child care license would still be required. That's correct. But we have another school that starts at 10 months old, goes to 14 years of age, but they're labeled as school. And I'm trying to understand the difference, because they're so, each entity is so similar. Actually, Guidepost Montessori is actually larger than this facility and sits on a smaller lot. So I guess my question is there some inconsistency there that I've missed?
Well, on the first aspect, I am not familiar with the location, so I can't speak to it directly.
73 in Norman View.
Okay. I am not familiar with it. It has not come through to be permitted here in the last 15 years.
Yeah, it's been there for at least 20-something years, being a Burkdale resident.
Okay.
It was built in 2001, and the neighborhood started getting built in 1999, because I did the same research because I drive by it all the time.
We will investigate it. So it was not known to us, that age group. It was actually permitted before any of the staff was here, but we will check on it. And we will expect consistency, as I know the board will.
And it was a different daycare program before it was a Guidepost, and it was approved as a daycare, and it was children.
Actually,
Chesterbrook
it
Academy.
was Chesterbrook Academy.
Yes.
And we will check that.
Thank you. And the only reason that I bring it up is because there was some conversation when I watched the planning board meeting about property values. And so when I start looking at the residents around Guidepost Montessori, I'm not seeing the negative impact in regards to the property values over around that particular site.
Okay, so it was permitted as a Chesterbrook Academy. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, I think I am familiar with that. I'm familiar with that, okay, that location.
And I don't know how long it's been a Guidepost Montessori now.
Okay, so in regard to how it was permitted, I do not know. As Jack said, we can look into that. If it changed the use, I don't know. What I will say is, from the discussion with the state, that even though if they are a school, if they're a Montessori school and they're accredited as a school, usually a lot of Montessori schools are actual schools. If you do handle infants, you are still required to get a daycare license. So they could still be a school and also be required by the state to get a daycare license or a child care license from the state of North Carolina. So they could be both.
Okay.
And I don't know what the situation is with that specific location. But from the state, they could be absolutely fine. How would they view now if they went from a school to a daycare or back? I just don't know at this time.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I'll just add to your comment, the one difference between the two that I think is interesting is in order to attend that school, you have to drive into Burkdale.
You have to what?
You have to drive into Burkdale. There's no other way. You have to make a left or a right or go down Burkdale Commons or go through Devonshire. You have to go into the community.
That's, yeah. Okay.
Any other questions, comments? Motions?
I'm ready to make a motion.
Commissioner Walsh?
In considering the proposed rezoning petition R21-01, the Huntersville Community Daycare, the town board approves, based on the amendment being consistent with the Huntersville 2040 Community Plan, including policy LU 5.1, allow more intense development only when transportation infrastructure and utilities already exist. Policy LU 6.2, commercial uses are encouraged in the town core and as specified in adopted small area plans. Policy LU 6.3, small-scale neighborhood-serving commercial and office uses may be allowed in town core and moderate density areas specified in the future land use map at key locations if designed in context-sensitive manner. This rezoning is approved with the following conditions. The Highway 21 Samfur Small Area Plan is hereby amended by the town board to include this property as commercial as a result of this rezoning. Cut-through traffic in the neighborhood is discouraged by the applicant to the extent possible. Therefore, the letter submitted by the applicant in regard to enrollment commitments is added to the record and approved as a condition of the rezoning. The applicant commits to work with the town and NCDOT to reestablish the Samfur sidewalk connection to the extent possible. And number 4, minor comments from town staff be updated on the final rezoning plan. It is reasonable in the public interest to amend the zoning ordinance because the site is in the town core, the subject site is appropriately located near commercial facilities on Samfur Road. Samfur Road is a major transportation corridor. The property in question would be a suitable candidate for a medium-density infill commercial development, and the property is surrounded by single residential development, which use services like daycares and schools.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Commissioner Hines? Any other discussion? Commissioner Munger?
Sure. So I had the opportunity to visit both the Ballantine and Steel Creek locations of this type of structure and came away with two very different impressions. The Steel Creek location was a good fit with the school across the street and other nearby commercial buildings. The Ballantine location was the exact opposite. It looked like it was wedged into a residential area with houses surrounding it on all sides, and it just didn't make sense to me. Based on where this is intended to be built, I think our situation more closely emulates the Ballantine location, and as a result, for me, it just doesn't make sense. I know that much has been made of the idea that if we don't approve this, the applicant will simply turn it into a charter school, which can be built by right. One might feel as though they need to pick the lesser of two evils, but for me, I am choosing to focus on the plan that has been presented to us and nothing else. And as a result, I will not be supporting this.
Okay. Any other discussion, comments? Commissioner Hines?
Yeah, I'd like to just say, I mean, I mentioned it a little bit last time. I've lived in both the Hamptons, and I lived on Hampton Trace Road for 4 years, excuse me. Back at that time, it was a 2-lane road, and traffic backed up every race weekend. And we had a commissioner that actually lived in Cambridge Grove at the time. And when the town board at the time was working with NCDOT on the design, I think one of the reasons the town owns that little small sliver of piece right there by Hampton Ridge is because they was trying to figure out, could we put a stoplight right across from that, basically the daycare site, this daycare site, and the Hamptons entrance, because we didn't know it was going to be a super street. We weren't really aware of what the street design was at the time. And you know, when I lived in Hampton Trace, I had 2 very small young kids, and I always thought it'd be a great, like, TK program or a site, because there were so many families that had young children out there, and it's so convenient. And I've thought that for 18 years. I think this is the right fit. I know it's not popular, but I do think that this is accommodative to the area. Part of Highway 73 is a major corridor. It's basically a regional highway. I think the buffers protect the residents from what other things could be built there. So, you know, I thought this site was a good site for this use for many, many years. So that's why I will be voting in favor of it.
Commissioner Bales?
Well, I was wondering if we wanted to hear from the applicant at all.
Well, you're welcome to ask.
I'd like to
Is
hear
the
from the
applicant
applicant.
still here?
Okay, so then I would like to go quickly back to my own research. Like Commissioner Hines, I used to live in Hampton Ridge, built my first home here in Huntersville and Hampton Ridge, and was there for about 5 years. Since the public hearing, I have driven down and looked at all 3 other sites, located the Montessori school right down the road at 73, took a look at it, walked the 5-acre site, drove countless times doing the U-turns, coming through the neighborhood. What does the site distance look like? Just in and out, and really trying to put myself in your shoes. One of the things that I find very important on this board is that we work to be as impartial with these things as that we can be, because we also know that there's 2 sides to the issue. I will say, after stumbling across Guidepost Montessori, where it sits on 73, very, very similar in design, it has put me in a position where I do feel like this is the right fit for this site. The 30-foot buffer is completely different, but if you cannot compare Ballantyne's site to this one. It has barely any buffer, sits on half the acreage, sits on a very small 2-lane highway. This is a 4-lane divided highway. And I agree with Commissioner Hines, this is not a popular vote, that's for sure. And it's one that has weighed on me tremendously over the last few months. But I do feel like it is the right fit along this corridor and for this particular piece of property. I know that we don't want to look to what it could be. At the same time, I think we would be doing an injustice to the community if we didn't. In a school, which I heard the petitioner say during the public hearing, if this facility would not be approved, they would continue to build a school. I frankly think a staggered time, entrance, and exit strategy for families makes a whole lot more sense than a hard start and a hard stop. And coming from Torrance Creek Elementary, where we had events after events, where I envision parents parking along Cranebridge Grove, walking over the berm, and participating in their students' celebrations and graduations at the end of the year and holiday parties, etc. I see that and I just do not believe that is in the best interest of the community, a community that I truly loved and do love. So I will be supporting this rezoning tonight.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay. All those in favor of the motion? Seeing all those opposed? All right, that motion passes. I want to thank everybody. I appreciate the efforts that's gone into this. And I would look to Birkdale as a similar situation. And I think most people have been very happy with the guideposts in Chesterbrook when it was there. All right. Our next item is 9C, consider decision on petition R21-05, a request by Palillo Holdings to amend petition R08-12, approximately half an acre on the southeast corner of Statesville Road and Rich Hatchett Road from Neighborhood Central Conditional District to Neighborhood Central Conditional District for the purpose of revising building elevation. Mr. Richards.
Good evening, Brian Richards for the planning staff. Just a quick update. We heard about this a couple months ago. The planning board recommended with unanimous approval to support this revision to the elevations as seen on the screen here. And I'm here to answer any questions that you have. And I'd like to submit the staff report to the record.
Do I have a motion? Commissioner Munger, you're hot tonight.
In considering the proposed rezoning application R21-05 Symphony Park Sales Center, the town board recommends approval based on the plan being consistent with the Huntersville 2040 Community Plan, specifically policies LU 6.2 and EV 2.1. It is reasonable and in the public interest to amend the zoning ordinance because the rezoning is consistent with the existing development patterns in the area. The revised building elevations are in keeping with other developments within the area. Thank you.
Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Walsh. Any discussion? All those in favor? I'm seeing none opposed. That motion passes. Item 9D is considered decision on petition TA 21-04, a request by the Huntersville Town Board to amend Article 7.4.2F of the Huntersville zoning ordinance to create an administrative staff review for tree mitigation plans. Is there a motion?
Mr. Mayor.
Commissioner Boone?
The town board approves the text amendment 21-04 to amend Article 7.4.2F, as in Frank, to make tree save mitigation an administrative process. The approval is based upon the amendment being consistent with the policy EOS 4.2 and EV 1.4 of the Huntersville 2040 Community Plan. It is reasonable and in the public interest to amend the zoning ordinance because it allows staff to effectively and efficiently review and enforce the tree save standards without delaying the review process for businesses and developers. However, the removal of the tree mitigation from the planning board, the direct public involvement is also removed. To maintain public visibility, the planning board the town board requests that the administration tree mitigation process and results be hosted and maintained on the planning department website in such a manner that the information may easily be located by the public for review.
Second.
Commissioner Bales? Any discussion? Commissioner Munger?
We received an email from planning board member Harold, and I'm going to kill your last name, sorry.
Former planning board.
That's Hal
Former-
Bankier.
I'm sorry?
Bankier.
Bankier, thank you. Mentioning that in the past, planning board has been able to negotiate with applicants to increase the number or size of trees planted in mitigation. Is planning staff currently in a position to take on the additional duty and work in the best interest of the town? In other words, do you feel like the department will be able to push for mitigation beyond the minimal standards written in the ordinance?
No. So that is something where it is an objective requirement. The requirements are spelled out. And so really, currently, the planning board nor staff has the ability to try to negotiate more or less requirement. If the applicant meets the requirement, it's gonna be accepted. We're gonna approve it based on what the ordinance dictates.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments? All those in favor of the motion? All those opposed? Okay, motion passes 5-1.
Thank you.
Item 9E is consider approving First Amendment to the contract for services between the town of Huntersville and Swim Club Management Group of Charlotte. We gotta get a name change there. Ms. Huffman, is there a motion? Is there questions? Commissioner Boone?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to make a motion to approve an additional year to the swim club management contract. The contract with the additional year will end June 30th, 2024.
Second.
Commissioner Phillips? Any discussion? Commissioner Walsh?
Yeah, I won't be voting for the contract extension. The contract's up in 2 years. It then contractually goes on a year to year after that, assuming that we don't make a longer contract. So I don't see any justification for adding another year at this point.
Any other questions, comments? All right. All those in favor of the motion? All those opposed? Motion passes 5-1. Final item on our agenda is 9F. Consider adopting resolution to approve preliminary services agreement with Edifice LLC for pre-construction and design services for the new town hall project. Ms. Sloop, you got up there quick. Tell us what we're doing here.
So you have before you a preliminary services agreement, and essentially this is for the first phase of the town hall that is being proposed. This would cover schematic design documents and also any other design documents that are agreed upon between the parties. Essentially, at the end of the contract, Edifice, the design build team, would come back to the town with a proposal as far as the next phase, and that next phase would cover the actual construction. Included in the contract before you have a scope of services at Exhibit C, which details a little bit more with specificity regarding the proposed total cost of the project, as well as giving you almost a line item breakdown of the $960,000 that would be tied to this preliminary phase contract, or preliminary services agreement, I should say. Edifice is here. They have some of their members of that design build team here available for questioning if you do have specific questions. Otherwise, I'm happy to answer any contract-specific questions.
I would say the board would probably like to hear from Edifice. Is anybody still here? They stayed. Come on up, please introduce yourselves and hear what you have to say. I know you're going to be very busy in North Mecklenburg over the next couple of years.
And Mayor, we have PowerPoint, but I don't know if we want to load it. Y'all want to see a PowerPoint and all that? I mean, we can make it as fancy as you like.
Sure.
It's a big decision.
Whatever you have.
Bobby, you want to, can you load it?
Good evening, everybody. We are the Edifice and Creech Associates team. I'm Mike Carlisto with Edifice, and I'll let these guys introduce themselves.
Hi, my name is Brent Green. I'm a lead designer principal with Creech and Associates.
Tim Bender, Senior Project Manager with Edifice.
Okay, so we do have a quick little presentation that we can go through for you guys. Perfect. Okay, so our presentation really covers the team. You've heard from the three of us already, our experience in the process, the design-build process that will be employed in this project. You've heard from the three of us, but there's going to be a lot more than just Brent, Tim, and myself on this project. We'll have support, architectural support, engineering support, and also pre-construction and construction support all the way. So we have a team that will be dedicated specifically to your project. I heard mention that busy in the North Mecklenburg area. Just rest assured, the people that are dedicated to your project are working on your project and not up at the Kane Center in Cornelius. So it's a different team, so rest assured. Okay, and the other folks that are part of our team, it's not just Edifice and Creech, it's Dewberry, it's Optum Engineering, Stewart Engineering, and we work on a lot of town hall and municipal projects together, so a lot of great combined experience between the group. Edifice, we're locally owned. We have our main office here in Charlotte. We do have an office in Charleston as well, but we're locally owned, financially sound, very strong bonding capabilities, and very deep municipal experience as well.
At Creech and Associates, also locally owned, we focus on the design of civic buildings, specifically town halls. It is our deepest well of experience. We've done a ton of those in this region, and we're excited to share that experience with you all as well. So again, I think to build on what Mike said, this is what we do. This is our specific market type. We have over 50 municipal clients, and if you combine our portfolios together, we have a really deep well and rich wealth of municipal experience, not only in town halls, but in a wide range of facilities. I think importantly is our experience together. I think this will be our 15th project together. Many of those, as you see, 8 town halls, city hall projects. And again, this is an award-winning team. We won the 2020 Project of the Year for St. Joseph Seminary, which is across all categories and genres, which is a wonderful achievement for this team before you right here. So I'm going to spend a few minutes talking through our process. And forgive me if I give you the Reader's Digest version, as I know you all have been here a while this evening. If you have any questions, please feel free to stop me as we go. This is some of the information that we shared through the interview to make sure that everyone understood that communication is key, is the primary factor in the way that we go about our business, and making sure that everyone is always up to speed and current on whatever issues are, wherever we are throughout the process. And that includes our leadership team and you all as an extension of that as well. We originally started with a map that gets us through this process from soup to nuts in 25 total months. And that is our goal as we're starting. I think we're getting maybe a month later start than we anticipated, but working through this process together, I'm quite sure we can accomplish this goal. So we're going to talk through our process, and we begin always with a series or phase called advanced planning, where we're going to engage the staff and leadership to make sure that we understand the cross-section of their needs. There are several of these tasks that happen in parallel, and ultimately they converge once we understand the depth of needs into conceptual designs and our first understanding of what some of our cost estimates might look like. We're going to do what's called a programming and forecasting phase as the beginning of that advanced planning, where we're going to work with staff to understand their needs. We're going to benchmark that with other town halls in this region. We're going to align the forecast with some other models that we have in-house through metrics to verify growth, to make sure that we're not planning a building for today, that we're planning a building that will last you all well into the future and meet your needs beyond today's. We're going to utilize standards. Because we've done so many facilities like this, we have several things we can offer you as advantages. What's the right size chamber? How flexible does it need to be? You all are obviously pretty well adept at that as you're meeting here. So we're going to continue to draw out all those critical elements that make the chamber successful and the right size for your community. We understand that public engagement is a huge component of that. We are very well versed in that and look forward to sharing similar experiences that we've done in other neighboring communities like Davidson and Pineville that were very rich and rewarding and often vet out some great ideas that define themselves into the final product. As always, a big goal of ours is to make sure that through the contracting process that we maximize the opportunity for MWBE participation. As you can see, even with goals that are established, all of these projects show examples of how those were exceeded, and that will be a goal for this project as well. So once we get out of the advanced planning phase and we understand what the needs are and we have some conceptual ideas, we're going to launch into schematic design and the balance of the design process. And the key thing to take away from this slide is we will always look at options. There's never one solution that comes from us. We are always looking at variations on the theme until we work our way down the funnel together and make sure that this is the right fit for the town. We began to look at some ideas that are going to be key to the design of this facility. You have a wonderful opportunity for plaza on the corner. And some of the beginning parameters that we talked about were, is it 3 stories, is it 4 stories? And so instantly we did some studies to test how that really changes the character of the corner plaza. And it really will be a significant factor as we move through design. So there were 4 options that we put together here that sort of investigated a range of development opportunities on the site. We're going to talk about where is the chamber. Does it need to be on the first floor so it can be readily accessible? Does it need to be on an end off the plaza? Does it need to be in the center of the building? Does it want to have windows? All of those different questions that come with how we can manage your chamber successfully. Then we begin to look at a series of white box models. You ask yourself, why are these white? Well, again, we're trying to force ourselves to look at the mass and form of the building, not get caught up in materials. Look at the 3-story building, how pressed on the corner it is, versus one that has a 3-story massing with just a chamber pulled out by itself, how that changes the character of that space, versus a more compact 3-4-story footprint that begins to open up the plaza a little more, versus a pure 4-story footprint, which begins to open that up even more. So we don't show any of these as answers, just as the type of studies that we're going to go through with you to make sure that we get the right design. We actually did a few things just to warm up to that, just to show, again, not that these are the answers, but these are the tools that we use to communicate design. So that when this project hits the ground, you're going to have been around it, you're going to have seen it from every angle, you're going to understand what it feels like to be a pedestrian and experience this facility. And again, we're going to have fun conversations like, what is an engaging street entrance? Should the building have a cupola? Does that make a building civic? What are these other identifying features that clearly identify a town hall project? What is a building like that has entrance from the street side for pedestrians that also has a pretty large arrival from the parking deck side? And how do we manage that through connectivity to make sure that the building can be navigated well? A wonderful compression between kind of the 2 buildings that then opens back up perhaps into what that plaza space could be on the corner. Really, really rich set of opportunities within this design. And again, we put this forth just as a tool to show how we will communicate those ideas with this team and with leadership. I'm going to skip through these other 2 kind of a little bit more quickly. We have a couple more of these. Forgive me, I'm going to drive through them in the interest of time. This one talks about what the pedestrian experience is like. You all just went through this great 2040 exercise, and so we know that this is a critical component to a successful design. And what does it feel like as we begin to approach this space and understanding really what that rich experience could be like.
And then on the construction side, I think, like Brent mentioned, lots of options, but I think one of the keys that we've targeted from the beginning is that we are going to separate ourselves. We know how busy that corner is. We're going to make it 2 projects. You got the projects of everything that's going around the outside of that building with the traffic flow, with the sidewalks, Discovery Place Kids, the fire station, the existing parking deck, separating ourselves, making it a project that's in the project. So that's obviously very important. We've worked with Skip and talked about, he's with Dewberry, and we'll use all entities for detours, bypasses, and discuss with all the players from Huntersville what's needed and make sure that we obviously separate ourselves. And then we just put together a little bit of site renderings, logistics on how we come in, how we separate ourselves. When we start to go vertical, how we'll keep ourselves separate from the sidewalks on the side, and ultimately just the open communication from the beginning to determine what everybody in the town needs. And trust me, I'm a local resident, proud to be here, and I know how busy that intersection is, and I'll be getting phone calls much quicker from my wife when she can't get through there because of me than everybody else around here. So
that's the That is the Reader's Digest version that we prepared for you all this evening. We'd be happy to attempt to answer any questions that you have.
According to those pictures, the intersection looks pretty good. So,
Glad to hear that.
I'm sure there are going to be some questions, comments. Commissioner Walsh?
Just a couple quick ones. Engineering, how long do you think that'll take, assuming it's approved?
We were made? Yeah. I believe
it
we
up
were
there? I missed
spring
it.
of next year.
Okay.
Yeah, it was around a 12 to 13 month design period.
And
So,
then construction?
Another 14 months after that. So our target is hopefully to get you in there before July 1st of 2023. So we're targeting June for completion.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Commissioner Bales?
So at what point, I love the fact that, that you recognize that everybody wants to be a part of this, right? So at what point in this process are we doing the charrettes and gathering information from our residents and those that want to participate?
That's a great question. That could be done in a variety of ways. Often it's done in a number of engagements where we ask different questions when we're at different points in the process. We may ask some big picture questions in the very beginning phase, in that advanced planning, that very first phase that we talked about a moment ago. What do you want to see? What are your priorities? What are your interests? How large should the chamber be? All those type of functional questions that we could ask. And then we may come back at another round where we've done a little bit more work and we have some more things to share, where we could ask some more focused questions. So I think that process can be customized depending on the number of engagements that you all want. Typically, it's done in 3, but that would be our starting point, but we're open to making that work for how you feel like the right level of engagement is.
Great, thank you.
Commissioner Munger?
Yeah, just want to say, think it's really great presentation. Appreciate everything, all the work you put into it. You had mentioned that you had past experience with the town of Huntersville. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, I skipped that in the Reader's Digest version. So we were fortunate enough to work with the town on the design of Discovery Place Kids in the current Huntersville Town Center. David Creech, our firm founder, was actually the designer of the original Huntersville Town Hall when he worked for a previous firm. That project number has a 2003 number on our server, so we've been working on that site for about 17 or 18 years. So it is really exciting to see the entire process come to a culmination with the development of that parcel.
Thank you.
How about budget? Who wants to handle that?
Don't run away, Ben.
Just for clarification too, we can ask the town manager, but it's always good as well from you, the process of design build versus the other way, which is contract, and hopefully it stays within budget.
So the best part of the design build process is it's a collaborative process where we're all a part of it from the beginning. From the programming and concept, we're teaming together, we're pricing at each one of those stages of design, so you know what the price is. Your goal is obviously to maintain the budget and stay within it. The biggest thing that we see here is, all right, does the town need 40,000 square feet or 50,000 square feet right from the start? You may not. You may need only 25,000 square feet. So we will have the options to shell some space in the building for future purposes, but we want to help you best prepare for down the road as you grow. So that's going to help the budget. The market's pretty volatile right now. I'll be very open with you about that. So we won't be bidding or pricing until next year. I'm hoping everything kind of calms down by that time. I'm praying that it calms down because it is volatile right now.
Yeah, and steel is cheaper than lumber right now. So
For the time being.
yeah. Commissioner Boone?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've got 2 questions. This is the only site that you studied right there in front of Kids Discovery Place? That's the only site that you looked at?
That's what we were instructed to program for.
My second question is for the senior project manager that lives in Huntersville. If you were going to build a town hall, where would you build it?
Well, that's a loaded question, but so that site has opportunity to really develop that downtown to what you want it to be and being your project. And it can be the beacon of Huntersville if done correctly. And I think that site can accept a building and be a town hall there. And I think if you work on the sidewalks and keep it open for the people to kind of flow in and out and have a corner where the Christmas tree can still be there, it can be a meeting space and a gathering space for Discovery Place kids coming in, I think that site is a perfect spot.
Well, most downtowns have like a little green space. Let's take Central Park in New York City, where everything's grown around it. In Huntersville, that's our last little piece of green in downtown.
Well, the new park, right? Down the street, across with the trolley over the caboose?
Veterans Park.
Veterans Park, yeah. Name forgot.
Okay.
Possible.
Any other questions, comments? No? Is there a motion? Commissioner Walsh?
I would like to make a motion to approve the resolution to approve preliminary services agreement with Edifice LLC for pre-construction and design services for a new town hall project.
Is there a second? Commissioner
I'll
Warner?
second that.
Any further discussion?
I'm gonna vote against this, and it's nothing against y'all. I just have a lot of heartache about a new town hall, but you guys are very nice, and I appreciate you.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? All right. All those in favor of the motion? All those opposed? All right. That motion passes. As somebody who will look forward to this process, been talking about it for a number of years, I would like to reiterate the fact that we've sold some parcels, or in the process of selling some parcels, have sold some parcels downtown, are consolidating our assets into one terrific building, and I think it was the right plan, and we look forward to seeing the results. So, thank you. All right. Do I have a motion for the consent agenda?
Clarification, I think we have one other item.
Huh?
Filing fees?
That's all I have on my,
9H.
Yeah, we have a 9H for filing fees.
this
for-
was what was in my Word document.
Well, we can go ahead. I'll make a motion that we adopt the filing fees for mayor and town commissioners as determined by this governing board. Filing fees for Huntersville would be mayor, $10, and board of commissioners, $5.
I'll second it.
Okay. Any discussion on that? I think you should raise them.
I have a quick question. If I can. Well, a statement. I mean, I think that I've only been a part of 2 election cycles. And I know $5, I mean, I joke with Commissioner Walsh that I'll pay his $5 if he'll pay my $5. But I think every year that we have, 10 to 12 or 13, but there's always somebody that like really doesn't participate, but they just threw $5 in the pot and their name's on the list. And I think that as we're growing as a community, I think that maybe we should reconsider increasing the filing fees. It's not a real revenue, it's not a revenue generator per se, but my question is, would it help the quality of candidates and really and weed the people out that are more serious about this? I mean, that's my only thing. Whether it's 5 or 10 or 50 or 100, I don't know. But I just think $5 is too low. I think $10 for mayor's too low. But I don't know what that number is. I'm just throwing that out there.
Might be interesting to see what other communities around us do. I don't even know, to be honest with you. But I don't disagree with your comments.
Well, the state does 1% and the federal government does 1% of the salary, so. All right.
We're about right.
Any other discussion? All right. All right. All those in favor? Seeing none opposed?
I'm not opposed.
You're opposed?
Yeah.
All right, 5-1. Well, it wasn't even on my agenda, so. All right, now, do I have a motion to the consent agenda?
Motion to adopt the consent agenda.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? It's got to be unanimous.
Did you know?
No?
No.
All those opposed? Okay. All right. Any closing comments? All right. I have a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Adjourn.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Thank you all for coming.